Welcome to Centered Presents The Future of Health. Join me, Christina Walecka, along with Dr. Molly Brown, as we dive deep into the world of brain-based wellness.
In each episode, we will explore cutting-edge insights and practical techniques that empower you to achieve optimal health and super high-energy living.
Tune in and start your journey toward a healthier, more vibrant you. Well, we are so excited today to welcome Sage Dammers, co-founder, CEO of Addictive Wellness, known for your sugar-free raw chocolates and herbal elixirs. And I know, Sage, a little bit about you is through personal experience and health journey. You wanted to create a product for people to continue enjoying food without sacrificing pleasure. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself a little bit and about your journey and path in getting to where you are today.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you both so much for having me on. It's a real honor, and you've both been so supportive of our little family business since the early days. So I have huge gratitude for both of you.
I told Sage this story really quickly, but when I moved to LA 9 years ago, the first product I ever bought from Erewhon was an Addictive Wellness chocolate. And this is the first time we're meeting, so this is amazing. Full circle moment.
It's so cool. So I grew up in Southern California in a health-oriented family, as much as one could be in the 90s, in the sense that the internet wasn't what it is today. We didn't have this kind of access to information. So my parents were doing the very best they could health-wise with the knowledge that they had. So that translated to growing up on a mostly, basically 100% vegetarian diet. And so not the most variety of food, maybe not the best dietary sources of protein. It was kind of like 5 nights a week of basmati rice and tofu, and 1 night a week of pasta, and 1 night a week of pizza. And that was kind of on repeat for my whole childhood. And so, we didn't mind. We were blessed in so many ways, and my parents were doing the best they could, right? We weren't eating fast food. We weren't going to McDonald's. We weren't having industrial meats. We maybe weren't having the best nutrient density, though, as I mentioned. And so as I was getting into my teens in competitive sports, I would always get to a certain level, both academically and athletically, that I would be really good, but there would be this next kind of step in progress and performance that I could never quite reach. And it got me thinking that maybe there's something I'm missing, in some kind of an input that I'm missing, something I don't have to take that next step. And one thing I knew is that my diet was different than everybody, because nobody else is vegetarian. And so I kind of thought, maybe I wonder if there's something dietarily that I could do. And I wasn't thinking about stopping being a vegetarian at that stage. I no longer am now, just for clarity. But I got to looking around, and my parents had a wellness center where they had infrared saunas, they had infrared heated jade massage beds, they had massage and craniosacral therapy. So I was around a lot of this stuff. And I was seeing people really transform in terms of their health, as I'm sure you both in your professional lives have seen. And I was kind of getting exposed to, at a pretty early age, this concept of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of a cure. That if you get proactive about your health and build up this foundation of health before things go wrong, you can live a much better life. And it's a lot easier than waiting until things go wrong. And I was seeing people come into the wellness center and talk about this, but I was seeing that the people that were coming in were not actually practicing it. These were mostly people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who had back pain, who had liver problems, who had a problem with their prostate, who had arthritis. They all had their issues, and they were having radically transformative experiences and walking out of there much better. And that was very inspirational to see. But I was seeing, okay, nobody's actually practicing what they preach, in the sense that they all waited until something went wrong. They're then healing with holistic means, but they did wait until something went wrong. And so it got me thinking, what happens if I start doing all of this now instead of waiting? What if I start now as a 14-year-old thinking about my longevity, which is kind of a weird thought to have at 14. But I was like, what if I can stop aging to the maximum degree? And what will that mean for the length of my life, of course, but also the quality of my life? I thought about, I love surfing. Most people kind of back off of surfing around 60 years old, definitely by 70. There's not that many 70 or older people that you see in the water. And I thought, well, what if I could keep surfing until longer and keep progressing in my surfing until longer? And so I just got really excited about what it could mean for the potential of what I could do in my life.
It's amazing you were focused on longevity at 14.
Yeah, I just had this great fortune to be born into this family and be exposed to this stuff at the right time. So that was kind of like my early launching pad. And then I started getting exposed to some of these concepts of holistic nutrition, superfoods, then getting a little bit later into Ayurvedic herbalism and Taoist tonic herbalism. And seeing the power of these in my own body, the more I would learn about, the more I would try. The more I would try, the better I would feel physically, mentally, etc. The better I would feel, the more excited I would get to learn more. And it just kicked off this cycle that has never stopped.
It's so cool to hear that, because in a different way, that was my sort of story with like the power of high energy foods and superfoods. And I just felt like at maybe an earlier age, I didn't feel that good. I was already not feeling that good. And I started experimenting with changes in my diet. And I also started feeling really, really good. And that's actually how I found your products, was at a retreat center that I used to go to for like spiritual fasting. And these chocolates were there, and they're zero glycemic. So it kind of thought, I love cacao. So I actually like have been on your chocolates now for wait, you said 8 years was when I contacted you first?
Yes, it was 8 years ago that you first reached out and said you found them there at Tree of Life. And
For 8 years, these have been my go-to chocolate.
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I actually love, even though they're zero glycemic, I've had different variations. Like sometimes I take a square and put it with tahini or some walnuts. But now I take a square, just the last couple of weeks, I take a square and I put it with a date, and that's my breakfast.
That's awesome. Yeah, the walnut combination is so nice. My mom especially is a huge fan of the chocolate with walnuts. I make like her personal batch for her with the walnuts. And we said, we rebrand it. So our company is Addictive Wellness. For her, what I make for her, I call it Addictive Walnuts.
Play on words. Did you start with chocolate?
So chocolate, yeah, was our first product. I had kind of this concept in mind when I was building our business plan of 4 initial products, 2 of which eventually came to reality, and 2 of which kind of got pushed off to the side. But the two that came to reality were the chocolates and the elixir blends. And we started with chocolate first because who's not a fan of chocolate, right?
Yeah, I'm always surprised when someone isn't. But yeah, when I first had cacao, and it was so energizing and so mineralizing and so uplifting, right? There's like a study done. Did your wife, because you just had a brand new baby, congratulations, did your wife eat cacao throughout the pregnancy? Because I read a study when I was pregnant that the moms who ate the most cacao had the happiest babies.
She did through certain parts, and not in other parts. She was just listening to her body, and at some parts she was craving it. At some parts she had no interest. And so you you can't force it. But the cacao is in there, and so far we're on day 11, and baby's pretty darn happy, hardly crying, and super chilled and blissed out all the time. She'll go like, and then like she needs food, and then it's fine. And then she'll do, and you got to change her diaper, and it's fine. But that's it. There's been like 0 extended crying in the first 11 days. So fingers crossed it stays that way, but so far so good.
Well, it sounds like she is a great role model ahead of her, with someone who's been interested in the health field for as long as you have been.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be exciting because I started when I was 14. Now I got a little experiment starting at -9 months. Let's see how this one goes.
I did a lot of that too during my pregnancies, is like superfoods, like just the potency of the high energy foods was life-changing. So, not everyone wants the highest quality, highest energy experience, right? Whether, because you're in holistic health, so your family was, but not everyone is always looking for like the very best possible things. But it sounds like you were at a young age, and when I got turned on to like the food and nutrition, and for me, it was kind of into like the raw food nutrition and the superfoods and then the elixirs. But do you want to talk about the concept of superfood nutrition?
Sure, absolutely. So the idea of superfoods, it's a tough word because it's been kind of taken over by more of a mainstream media push, to where a superfood has lost its meaning a little bit, and that makes me a little bit sad because in my up and coming days, so to speak, that word was inspirational to me because it followed the principle of, okay, you are what you eat. If you want to be a superhuman and have a super life, you would eat superfoods. And what these were to me, and still are to me, although it's been diluted in the mainstream where kale and blueberries are considered superfood.
Celery.
Yeah, like the superfood to me, we're talking about things like spirulina, chlorella, bee pollen, aloe vera, cacao, royal jelly, camu camu, maca. These are an elite class of foods. It's probably maximum a couple dozen in the world that would fit the bill here, where on one end you have like herbs, which are super medicinal and very concentrated, but they don't have the caloric nutritional sustenance to live on. On the other end, you have regular foods, which are ideally very nutritious, but lack those interesting kind of magical components that you find in herbal compounds. And then you have superfoods, which are in the middle and bring together the best of both worlds. So an example of this, with cacao being my favorite, is going to be that, okay, we are needing magnesium in the body. It's the number one mineral deficiency. About 80% of people in America are chronically magnesium deficient. What's the number one food source of magnesium? Cacao. Antioxidants we hear a lot about are good for you, right? Number one highest food source of antioxidants, cacao. Chromium, very important for balancing blood sugar, the number one trace mineral that people in America are chronically deficient in. The highest food source of chromium, cacao. And then, so that's the nutritional side. And then you get into the medicinal side, where you have some more exotic compounds in there that interact with your brain chemistry. Things like serotonin, which people are familiar with. It's like your body's natural stress defense shield. Then you have more exotic ones even, like anandamide, which is known as the bliss chemical, and phenyethylamine, which is known as the love bliss chemical, because it's what gets secreted in your brain when you're in love. That's why we have this whole Valentine's Day chocolate connection. And so there's, all these other ones are like that as well. In spirulina, you could look at, okay, it's the highest food source of protein in terms of being 65 to 71% protein by weight. And that's on the nutritional side. Then you look on the more medicinal side, it is super high in GLA, gamma linolenic acid, which is a kind of omega-6 oil that's actually anti-inflammatory. It's like people get really anti-omega-6, but there's a few, diamonds in the rough in there like GLA that can have hugely beneficial impacts in terms of inflammation, in terms of the immune system, dealing with allergies and such. So that to me is what gets me excited about superfoods.
And then there's the energetic component of them.
Absolutely. This is just something that you can consume a relatively small amount of, and it has a huge impact on your physical, mental, and spiritual state. These are things that, for one reason or another, have been created in such a way that they concentrate more out of the earth than most other foods are going to. You can have all these minerals in the earth, but certain foods pull up certain minerals, and certain ones pull up lots more and have this extra bit of je ne sais quoi life force to them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at here.
Well, that's what, when I started finding about, because I had no idea what, like cacao, maca, goji, all the different superfoods, chia even. I never then after that wanted to eat anything that made me feel low energy or took my energy. Like I just was like a magnet to them. And I think for a long time, I would have maca every day, and I felt like it was really strengthening. Like I could work more. I didn't get fatigue. I didn't get a midday blood sugar crash. I was more mentally alert. And so I then always wanted more and more of them. Okay, so because you couldn't be here in person because of the baby, you sent us some elixirs and some powders, and we mix them up. So let's have our first sip. So this is the cacao one. So tell us what's exactly in here. This is the cacao elixir.
Okay, so this, of course, it has cacao powder, which is a very unique wild harvested cacao. This is not grown on a plantation.
Where's it from?
It's from Ecuador.
Okay.
And so it's wild harvested in various regions around Ecuador. And so these are trees that have been growing like this for 60 to 80 years in some cases. And they're big, tall, old trees growing in wild soil out there in the survival of the fittest. And it's free of mycotoxins, which is a mold toxin present in almost all cacao products that is a really detrimental effect on many areas of health. You don't have that here. And so then we also have in there tremella mushroom, which is known as the beauty mushroom. Works similarly to hyaluronic acid for pulling moisture and elasticity to the skin. And then you also have reishi mushroom, my personal favorite, amazing for decreasing stress and anxiety, great for the immune system. And then you also have gelatinized maca. So that's going to be increasing energy and endurance, great for anybody doing any kind of physical activity. And it's gelatinized because when maca is heat processed, as it traditionally was, it breaks down a lot of the starches in there. So it makes it much easier to digest and less likely to cause gas. And maca is also, of course, known as an aphrodisiac. And the last thing you want is an aphrodisiac that also gives you gas, because that is just really counterproductive to anything you would be trying to achieve.
How are you picking and choosing what you're adding to your products?
So it depends which product. So on our line of chocolates, my idea there was instead of having different flavors, we're going to have different functions. And so most chocolate lines are going to have, okay, you have this one's a mint chocolate, this one's a cayenne chocolate, this one's an almond chocolate. But I wanted to approach it differently. I wanted people, instead of thinking, what flavor do I want right now, and getting just stuck at the step of the taste buds, thinking, what health benefits do I want right now? Or what does my body need right now experientially? So each chocolate has a different function. So you have one for focus, one is tranquility, one for energy, one called recharge, which is for adrenal health or HPA axis dysregulation.
This has been my favorite for the whole time.
Is that the energy one you have there?
Yeah, the energy, and I also love the pure one.
Yeah. So the funny thing with the pure is that was one of our later ones to come out. And we always had to warn people on the chocolates, because of all the herbs that we use in there, not to consume during pregnancy or breastfeeding. A lot of these herbs are traditionally used during that time, but there's a lack of modern safety studies, because not exactly a lot of moms are going to sign up and say, hey, test something on me while I'm pregnant, see what happens. So we don't have enough safety studies to be able to say it's cool to have this herb or that herb during pregnancy. So I wanted to make this one for pregnant and breastfeeding moms, but my thought, and the reason I postponed it so many years, is, people aren't gonna, I mean, not that much percentage of the population is pregnant or breastfeeding at any given time. So this will only go to a small market. Not that many people will buy it. Turns out it became our bestseller.
That's incredible. That's exciting too.
Your customers would probably want the highest, like the 0.01%, right?
Exactly. The purest cacao experience. And I guess in this health world, fertility rates are probably higher than the average population. So you do see a lot more pregnant and breastfeeding action happening.
Adding all these nutrients, superfoods, mushrooms, whatever it may be, was it tough to kind of establish a great taste?
Yeah, so that's the big challenge, of course, because a lot of these herbs have very bitter flavors to them, and the Western palate is not accustomed in modern times to bitter flavors. Interestingly, like, bitter has been basically bred out of our food. If you have romaine lettuce, a very heavily bred lettuce, it doesn't have much bitter flavor to it. If you go to something more original, like a dandelion greens, whoa, if you put a little bit of dandelion green in your juice, and that becomes quite a bitter drink. You have to be careful not to go overboard on that. That's what, like, wild greens taste like. But we have had the bitter medicinal compounds bred out of our foods, and then have to have medicinal compounds sold back to us in pharmaceuticals. That's kind of like a conspiracy for another time. But the idea is, a lot of these herbs have bitter flavors because the active compounds in them are bitter. It's not the case with every herb. Like astragalus tastes like vanilla graham crackers. It's very pleasant. So astragalus is so nice. That's something you could have anybody take, regardless of whether they have a healthy palate or not. And they're going to say, oh, this is like kind of nice.
I love the bitter taste. I love it. Like, I crave it.
That's fantastic. And as the healthier you get, I think you embrace those flavors more, and you come to love them.
It was like, actually, through my work at the Tree of Life, like I would do periodic green juice fasts, and it just totally cleansed my taste buds. So I lost sort of that desire for the excess sweetness. It was like one by one, every fast, I lost a desire for some, like, I don't have any desire for like sugars, like excess sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to finish the answer to your question there, is that with each chocolate, we had to figure out a way, what herbs can you get in here that are going to work well flavor wise. The great thing, and a big part of the reason I'm into putting herbs into chocolate and mushrooms into chocolate, is that chocolate just so happens to have a bitter flavor. And for whatever reason, people in the Western world are perfectly okay with chocolate's bitter flavor. Somehow they've accepted that one, and I'm not going to argue with it. And so you can actually camouflage a lot of these bitter flavors of these herbs in with that chocolate flavor. It expands the flavor in a nice way that gives it a fuller body, and people don't revolt against it. It's kind of like a little bit of a Trojan horse. And so we have to be careful, though, because not all herbs play well with chocolate. For example, I would have loved, benefit-wise, to have put schizandra berry in our beauty chocolate, because it's one of the most famous beauty herbs used for thousands of years to create radiant skin. However, it has a very sour flavor to it, which does not play well with the chocolate. It plays great with berries. If you're making a berry smoothie, a berry ice cream, something like that, you put schizandra in there. It's fantastic. If you're making lemonade, add schizandra in there. It's magical, but not with chocolate. So that one didn't make the cut. Or rhodiola. I would have loved to have had rhodiola in our focus chocolate because it's amazing at increasing oxygen flow to the brain, but it is just overpowering. It's got a very singular flavor note that overpowers the chocolate. And now it's a rhodiola chocolate rather than a chocolate chocolate.
Well, I actually remember a long time ago when I first contacted you, when I had my cafe, and now we have these in my clinic now. But I was like, oh, which flavors do you like the best? And you're like, well, actually, they all taste pretty similar.
Yeah, subtle flavor difference, but they're all pretty similar in the
Yeah.
end.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, then I just ordered one of each color. But so, Sage, the other thing I think is you're so knowledgeable about functional blood work and sort of like genetic testing. And I remember hearing you talk one time, I think on your social media, about like, everyone can metabolize certain nutrients or certain substances more than others. And like, for instance, I remember you saying it was like, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, that you could not metabolize caffeine. Can you talk a little bit about like how you learned like the functional blood work and how everyone's a little different in what they can metabolize and what they can't? Like if someone can't metabolize caffeine and they're drinking caffeine every day, it's a huge energy drain on their system.
Absolutely. So I get really excited about getting genetic insights into your health because it's like getting the instruction manual for your body. In the health world, you hear a lot of times, oh, the body should come with an instruction manual, but it doesn't. We kind of have one. It's your genetics. And we have a decent amount of knowledge of how the genetics manifest now that we can get some really actionable insights out of it. And some people get really scared about having their genes tested, say, oh, I don't want to know. I can't do anything about it. I don't want to know if I'm going to have this disease or that disease. But it's important and essential to understand. It's not about a predetermined destiny. It's about understanding what works for you and what isn't. Because as you said, you can be consuming your kryptonite every day and not easily identify it necessarily. You may just be so used to feeling down and out that it's your new normal. But it may just be that genetically you can't process something. So for me, I have this interesting combination of two genes. One is that I'm a slow caffeine metabolizer, which means that caffeine comes into my body and I can't get rid of it as fast as the average person would. Some people are average caffeine metabolizers and some are fast caffeine metabolizers. If you ever meet somebody who says, oh, I drink caffeine and then I can go right to sleep, I don't feel anything, it's a fast caffeine metabolizer. Their body has pretty much gotten rid of it before it even had a chance to do anything. But for me, it's like I have consumed 10 times the amount of caffeine that I've actually consumed. So what happens there is I feel on top of the world for a short period of time, like one day. And then I have this other gene, which is called the COMT++ gene. And this is a bit more rare. And the result of this is that I make what are called, I make certain neurotransmitters like a normal person in terms of dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. And these are called catecholamines. And I make them like a normal person, but I don't get rid of them as fast. Similar to the caffeine, like I can consume a normal amount of caffeine, I'm gonna have a different reaction because I don't get rid of it as fast. I can produce a normal amount of dopamine, and I can't get rid of it as fast, so it has a bigger impact. There's an upside and a downside to this. Upside is it makes me pretty darn happy most of the time. It allows me to focus, to learn really quickly. It boosts frontal lobe function, which is where you have what's called executive function, where you decide what you're going to say, what you're not. So it's extraordinarily rare that something slips out, so to speak. I have a very strong filter. And you've met people who are the opposite as well. Stuff is just slipping out all the time. They have COMT-, lower frontal lobe function. They're getting rid of their dopamine super fast. But for me, because the caffeine is magnified and then increases dopamine, I get this super dopamine hit and I feel on top of the world for one day with caffeine. And then these neurotransmitters build up to such a level that I can't get rid of them and they become irritants to my nervous system. And I'm sad actually for like a week after that. And it's the worst. And it would be hard to identify if I didn't know. I could just think I have depression. I hate my life. But I just drink caffeine every day because everybody else does, and it helps me to wake up or whatever, and helps me to focus. But I may never have made the connection. Who knows?
I think I must have the same thing with like caffeine and alcohol because I don't like them. I feel like down and sad just even with caffeine. Like and that's why I think going to the elixirs, right? And the medicinal foods can not only give you the charge of what caffeine would give would hypothetically give somebody, but it balances your system. Like even just drinking these drinks right now, I feel immediately high energy.
It's a nice balanced energy, right? I'm not going to promise anybody that one of our chocolates or one of our elixirs is going to give them that caffeine hit, especially because to me the caffeine hit is 10 times to what it is to a normal person. So like caffeine is like whoa, and I don't get that from chocolate, but it's a nice, calm, balanced energy, and it's more sustainable for a lot of people, and it's not something you become dependent on. It's just pleasant.
Having traveled and studied in as many places as you have, what are you kind of learning from all of the different cultures you've
Yeah,
experienced?
the ancient traditions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and these days it becomes a little bit harder when you go to places because so many people have been swept up into the Western lifestyle, which has been so pushed throughout the world. But as you go to different places, you can look at a lot of times like athletes. What are the athletes doing in terms of supplementation that pulls from their culture? Like one of our most popular herbs that we sell is black ginger from Thailand, and this is a relatively unknown herb in the West. Everybody's familiar with ginger. Almost nobody's heard of black ginger, but this is super popular in Thailand amongst Muay Thai athletes because it really gets their circulation going and gives them this physical endurance. And then when you dig into the research on it, it is amazing in a number of ways. It helps to protect the brain from the negative effects of stress. Of course, it increases circulation, which is great for exercise and endurance and brings a lot of performance benefits. For guys, it's kind of like the natural version of the little blue pill. And it's actually been studied specifically for that, which is great for guys to have a natural way to feel positive about what's going on in their lives in that department too. Well, either capsules is like the easiest way with some of these things. That way you don't have to deal with, am I going to make myself a drink? Am I going to do this or that? You guys, I think, made it today for some fun as a shot there. So that's one way to do it. You just put it with a little bit of warm water.
Oh, did we drink it here
and
with the little? Okay,
that was it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I was like, how can I get some? Like protecting my brain circulation. You're like, I got my beauty. I got my.
And that one, it's interesting. It doesn't have quite as spicy and fiery a flavor as regular ginger. It's more of an earthy flavor with a hint of spice. And the fun way to consume it as well that I share with people a lot, because it's easy taste wise, is you can take half a teaspoon of black ginger, a teaspoon or two of raw honey, and just stir those together in a cup and kind of make like a paste out of it, and just take that on a spoon as like a pre-workout or pre-romantic activity supplement. And it's really tasty. It's kind of like a spicy purple Jolly Rancher type flavor, I would say.
Amazing. I just don't think people think of food in that way, right? Of giving you energy and giving you balance. I feel like it's the opposite. People kind of think of food of like they eat and then they don't feel good. But when I changed my mindset around food like that, I just am really drawn to these energizing the superfood and the elixirs. It's like my favorite genre.
Well, no, it's so interesting again how, people eat because I think they enjoy the taste, they enjoy the process, they enjoy the social activity around it. They don't necessarily stay present in the moment, which more and more people should do and chew a lot more before swallowing. But not only like how it affects you in your mood and your stability and energy throughout the day, but again, learning about, oh my God, protecting my frontal lobes, and even for the men who don't want to take the blue pill, the food has all these abilities to really nourish you and affect the body in different ways.
It can balance and deeply correct the body, but I feel like we're so a lot of people's bodies are so blocked up right now that with the chemicals in the food, and if we can grasp the concept that food is healing and deeply nourishing, it's just a new way forward with food. And I feel like that's what your company kind of holds the space for, right?
And I've always said this, you can always find a healthy alternative that tastes good. And that's exactly what you're doing.
Right. That's exactly it. We wanted to take it as far as possible in a positive direction. We didn't want to just take out the bad stuff. I didn't want to take like a conventional chocolate and just make it sugar-free. I wanted to make it sugar-free with the healthiest possible sweeteners that have side benefits to them instead of side effects like you get with, let's say like aspartame or something like that. Our chocolate, we sweeten it with a combination of organic allulose and organic monk fruit. Allulose has huge metabolic health benefits and gut health benefits. And then monk fruit has been used as a lung tonic and a chi tonic in Chinese herbalism going back thousands of years. And then we wanted to add in as many beneficial ingredients, use the most potent wild cacao possible, like the 1% of the 1% of cacao in the world, and pack it with the most powerful adaptogenic herbs that we could, so that people would go beyond, as you said, just the taste and eat for feeling. I want people to have a feeling experience when they do this, because I could hype people up all day long about this health benefit, that health benefit, longevity, better sleep, etc. And so maybe based off that, they would buy one time, but then if it didn't deliver, we would never see them again. But if you can give somebody something where they feel it, that is amazing. It's of course going to create a great customer, which is great for, long-term business, but also just gets me excited to hear about when people call up and tell me about the benefits of their experience and tell me about the way that they're feeling, or when I read just our reviews on our website about people and how good they're feeling. That is it's my motivational fuel.
Is it accurate to say that these chocolates have zero effect on blood sugar?
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yep.
even a diabetic could eat these cacao.
They're totally diabetic friendly. Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the market, and again, looking at superfoods specifically, is it becoming a bit of a saturated market? Are you seeing a lot of high quality products out there?
It's at an interesting phase in the market. I think we're kind of like exiting the young phase of it, in the sense of where it was just like this random companies you would see here and there. I remember not that many years ago, Superfoods at Whole Foods would be just like one end cap, and now it's a whole aisle. And so it's reached a certain phase, but the average person, if you stopped them on the street and said, "What do you know about superfoods?" they would be like, what's that?" So I think there's still a long way to go. We've kind of reached the health food world, and people who already have this interest in health are getting wise to it. However, there's still this whole, I don't know, it's got to be the 90% at least of the population wouldn't know. So there's a lot of people to reach. And that's, what excites me about the future is we've made an impact on this microcosm of health world, but there's so many people that can still get this experience and transform their health and their lives and their families and all of it.
I mean, we always say it's such a great time right now because it's such a growing industry, but still, with all the technology, people neglect to think about food, right? There's no treatment that can overcome your food and lifestyle choices. There just isn't. And so you're never going to achieve your health goals unless your intake is, really high level and restoring health and intelligence to your body. So I think it's like there's still a lot of awareness for people to be consuming food that heals their body and increases their own body's intelligence and restores vitality.
Right. It forced it in other people, like you said, and you can't get away with not thinking about your health anymore. You can't get away just walking around with 3 or 4 comorbidities, because now you realize you are vulnerable. You can't take that risk. It's a risk to your life.
No, and I hope you're so knowledgeable in this space, whether it's a masterclass or again, spreading the word through our podcast and platform. Like, people need to know more, and you are such a great resource of information.
Yeah. The fact that you blend this deep, kind of love of longevity, obviously, if you're studying it at 14, and intelligence about the herbalism, it's really unique. I think there's a lot of teaching and education to be done in the space.
I love sharing the information. That's like a big part of our business is just the pure education side of it, which I'm constantly putting videos out on YouTube, short form, long form. My goal for myself for the next 90 days, I want to write 90 blogs in the next 90 days. We'll see. I'm on day 2. So far 2 for 2, trying to just share as much information as possible, because now it's becoming easier and easier for people to access. If you go back 20 years, it's like early days of the internet. You can maybe sign up for some random little weird membership websites to get access to some health educator, right? But it just wasn't there. And now we're blessed with this ease of sharing directly with people and making this direct connection in a way that you never know what bit of information it's going to be or what video you make that's going to hit somebody. and get them to take us one step. And that step can then snowball, because as you start to feel a little bit different, that can result in you making lots and lots more healthier decisions.
How do you guys as a family, like, what is your normal daily intake look like for, sort of like how do you use the elixirs and the cacao? What's your like breakfast, like take us through like a breakfast, lunch, a snack and dinner
Of a superhuman.
of a superhuman, of the top 1% of, right? I think.
Thank you. So breakfast for me is pretty much the same every day for about the last 8 years. So what I do is I take this great gluten-free toast from a company called Grindstone Bakery in Northern California. It's a quinoa millet sprouted seed loaf. It's all sprouted, fermented. There's no extra starches in there like you see with so many gluten-free products. Like you look at the ingredients and it's like predominantly potato starch and cornstarch, and that's going to have a horrible effect on your blood sugar, and I think is pretty much going to be worse for you than having had whatever gluten. But this one is not like that. It's great. I've tested before and after, and it has zero effect on my blood glucose. So I take 4 slices of this, pop them in the toaster, and then in a bowl I put an avocado, 2 tablespoons of C8 MCT oil, which is also caprylic acid, very easily turned by the body into ketones as an alternative fuel to glucose. And then a tablespoon of ghee, a tablespoon of almond butter, a tablespoon each of spirulina and chlorella algae powders, 3 tablespoons of grass-fed whey protein. And I will mash this all up till it's like a guacamole type consistency. And then you have these thin pieces of toast and like thick, like at least minimum half an inch, if not 3/4 of an inch of this green mush on top of it. And then I do salt and a mix of spices on top of that. And I love it. I have not gotten tired of it after, I guess, thousands and thousands of times of eating it now. And that, I love it flavor-wise. I love it the way it makes me feel immediately. And the key thing for me is I stay really busy work-wise. I don't have time to stop for lunch. So having this around sometime between 8 and 11 a.m., depending on what my day is like, this takes me until dinner in terms of having to have another serious meal. So I will eat, maybe a little chocolate during the day, or I'll have an herbal elixir. But as far as having a meal with any serious caloric substance to it, it's not until like 7 p.m. So this carries me a very long time without having to even really think about food. And so then during the day, I'll be drinking different herbal tonics. I really enjoy having them on their own, just in water, to really pay attention to the full flavor experience of each one. So I'll do, and depending on the flavor of it, I will take it differently. So reishi mushroom, for example, I'll have that in the evening with ashwagandha. I'll stir those up together dry in a cup and put a little bit of boiling water on top, stir it so it dissolves well, and add a little bit of just room temperature water. So it's at a drinkable temperature, and it's like a little espresso type drink, but strong bitter flavor. But that's my little sleep tonic.
Before bed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's, before bed, and that it gives me great sleep. During the day, I'll have, for example, if it's like a hot summer day and I want to make like a little like lemon drink, I'll add schizandra to that, maybe some roselle hibiscus, which you guys are enjoying over there.
Yeah,
right now.
this is amazing.
I was going to ask what this one was. It's
I'm
really
gonna start I just had an idea. Maybe we can make this in the clinic and just have it all because we're just about to hit the summer. Just have it all summer long for our clients.
Oh, amazing. That's so nice. Yeah. And then I'll have often lion's mane and cordyceps will be like, just if I need a little brain boost. And if I'm going to work out, of course, then it ends up being things that are more energy focused. If I'm working out or going surfing or something like that, then I'll do usually cordyceps, astragalus, and black ginger all together as kind of my pre-workout for increasing circulation, increasing strength in the extremities with the astragalus. So that's the day for me. And then usually, like, if there's a little energy dip around 3-4 p.m., that's when I'll have a square or two of one of our chocolates. As far as which one I pick, just depends on my mood of the day and whether I'm more beauty focused on that day, or whether I've been burning the candle a little bit at both ends a little too much, and then I'm going for the recharge chocolate for the adrenal supportive herbs in there. So that which chocolate will vary from one day to the next.
I made the cacao elixir that we made. I just made fresh macadamia milk and I mixed it with that. I switched from almond milk recently. I liked almond milk for a long time, but I've just been doing macadamia milk. and it's really
Nice.
good.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the elixirs, my reason for creating those was before starting Addictive Wellness, I was really into the business concept of the Elixir Bar. And so many years ago, before Air One was the behemoth of many locations that it is now, it was one location in West Hollywood.
Well, that's actually how Erewhon started. Like one small little hippie like smoothie bar, right?
Exactly. And so the kind of the heart of that business was the Elixir Bar, where it's a different thing now. It's reached so many more people, so I can't criticize that because it's obviously had an amazing impact. But there was something that I loved about it back in the day, which is no longer there in the sense of what the Elixir Bar was. This was a place where you could walk up, have like a little 5-6 minute mini consultation with an herbal specialist, and have something custom crafted to what's going on with you and what you're looking to achieve health wise. Whether it was a hot elixir, a cold smoothie, an ice cream that would be totally sugar free. And so this I loved, and I worked there many years ago because I wanted to learn that business model. It was 2011. I moved back from Australia. I was like, okay, I like the look of what's going on here. I'm gonna go work here. I started just volunteering. I would they were like, no, we're not hiring right now. My thought was I want to work there for at least a few months, maybe a year, get the idea of the business. I was like, well, what if I just come in and volunteer? So for the first 3 months, I was unpaid. I would get like maybe $3 or $4 of tips at the end of a shift. That was it. But I loved it because I was getting to share my passion for these things one-on-one with people, and seeing when they would drink a drink you would have like what the popular drink was, is that one of them was the reishi cappuccino. It's like a hot chocolate, but with reishi and hoshu wu. And you see them start to drink this and their eyes just light up. And it's like the conversations as well at the Elixir Bar that would happen around these kinds of drinks, and the community it created was the best thing ever. It was like the health food store version of the show Cheers. And so I was super into this concept. And so with a good friend of mine, we did a couple of Elixir Bar setups in 5-star hotels. Did one in at the Royal Monceau in Paris, and did one in Sydney at the place called the Adge, that was a wild one because it was a 5-star hotel where each room had its own butler. And so we were training the butlers to be able to make these herbal elixirs for the clientele. And so with these elixir blends that we created, I wanted to take these kinds of elixirs that we would make at the Elixir Bar and make them in a way that people could do easily at home that was totally foolproof. So at the Elixir Bar, you're starting with a hot tea base of like a Gynostema tea, or a hot, like you could do it, of course, hot almond milk, hot coconut milk, hot real milk, if that's your way of doing things. And then adding all these different powders individually, adding some sweetener, adding something to cream it up a little bit. And so I wanted all that in one at once. So all you have to do is bring the liquid and everything else is delivered to you. So these already have the sweetness in them, but in a sugar-free way. They already have the creaminess because tremella mushroom in there, which we talked about as the beauty mushroom. The tremella creams things up so nicely. It's like it's a beauty mushroom, but also it acts as like a natural creamer. And so the idea is whether you like chai, whether you like matcha, hot chocolate, any of these, caramel, you can have a drink that is going to hopefully, squeeze out whatever Starbucks drink you were having. And you can just enjoy this and deliver all these herbal compounds in there into your system. Things like tremella and reishi mushroom and astragalus and lion's mane mushroom for the brain and cordyceps for energy, and start feeling a different way. And I had old experiences that I tapped into when I was trying to create these flavors. Like for the hot chocolate, I would think when I would go skiing with my dad and my hands would be freezing at the end of the day, and you come into the lodge and you get the hot chocolate out of the vending machine and it's too hot to drink for like 30 minutes. You got to wait for it to cool down, but you're just smelling it. I was trying to create that flavor. Or for the chai, when I was growing up, part of my unique upbringing was that every Thursday night, my parents transformed our house into a meditation center where people would come for spiritual talks, chanting Sanskrit mantras and meditation. And at the end of every night, they would have a big pot of chai coming out. And so I was tapping into that smell from my childhood. I wanted to bring that back into this.
My type of family.
Yeah. So the elixirs, that's another one I love sharing with people because of how easy it is to do and how much benefit it can bring to somebody's life.
So with your elixirs, do you just mix those with hot water? Because it's already everything's already in there.
Yeah, I like the hot nut milk base is preferable to me. It adds a little more substance to it and helps to bring out the flavors a bit more. Um, but yeah, and then depending on which one it is, I might add a little something extra. So I love the color blue in foods, and it's so rare. And so one of the herbs that we sell is blue butterfly flower from Thailand. And so one of my favorites is the chai elixir plus blue butterfly. So it's like a blue chai. It gets all, it kind of gets all the senses going.
You said you did them in 5 hotels. Did that take off? Like, did you feel like people loved it?
Yeah. Well, it was a lot of different responses, right? So some people just didn't care, right? Because this is a new experiment of taking this really elite health food approach or health world approach into an audience that would never have encountered this stuff before. And especially when I was going into France, I was a little nervous, right? Because this is a country with serious old world tradition of how food is done. And I'm trying to come in here with cacao, with tonic herbs, and trying to tell them, oh, here's how we're going to make this, and here's how we're going to make that. And so when I went there, the first day I got there, I met with the head chef, and then he introduced me to like the 2 lieutenants under him. And I was thinking, okay, I got to figure out a way to win these guys over. The 2 lieutenants, they were younger guys. They were, looking back, probably like late 20s, early 30s. And guys at that age are very romantically motivated, let's say. So the first night before we were going to start everything, I said, okay, let me just make you guys one drink to get things started. Then we'll, get really into the work tomorrow. I made them the most powerful aphrodisiac elixir that I possibly could.
In Paris.
Black ginger.
It was black ginger, Sistanch, Hoshu Wu, Tonkat Ali, Morinda, Romania. And I said, Shilajit in there as well. And I said, okay, just drink this, go home to your girlfriends, enjoy the night, and let's, come back tomorrow and we'll get started on all these recipes for you. And they came in the next day, their eyes as wide as saucers, like, what was in there? My girlfriend couldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh.
And so like, I won them over. And they were just like totally open to anything I would want to suggest for the entire rest of the time there. And then when it came to introducing it to the customers, a lot of them were super into it and like, wow, this tastes really great. I'm loving it. Some of them were just like, no, leave me alone. I'm having my croissant. But it was really neat to be able to take these exotic compounds and introduce them to this world of, elite world travelers who never would have encountered this before. But I could only do that so much in the sense that it was a lot of hands-on work to reach each individual person. And so I realized if I can create a product that does this without me or having to train every time somebody's going to make it in some other place around the world, this is the way that people can get this experience anywhere. We have customers all over Europe that order our chocolate and say it's better than whatever Belgian chocolate they've ever had. And I don't have to, spend all my time flying around the world, which is nice because flying can be exhausting.
Yeah, I think it's what you said, like the feeling, right? The feeling of being shifted into a higher energy or a higher vibration state through food. And it'd be cool. It'd be cool to do like, well, it sounds like you are doing like teaching and lecturing, but it'd be cool to do like a series of classes. But then the magic is always in person, right? So to have like one of our visions for the future is to do a wellness conference here in Idaho, in Sun Valley down the road and invite like all the, top people. And, but it'd be fun and it'd be super fun an experience like that to make a big batch of, the elixirs or the teas or whichever one, and then just experience that as a group.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And the party that could happen around that.
Yeah, that's what I was visualizing.
Forget the Republicans, forget the Democrats. Let's have the chocolate party.
Well, Sage, thank you so much. Your products, you are amazing. You're such a pioneer in your field. Where can our audience find you?
Our website is addictivewellness.com. And then if you look up Addictive Wellness on any social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you'll find us. You'll find me, obviously very enthusiastically sharing this as much as possible. And thank you both for everything that you do in your community and also online and with your podcast and the way that you've supported us. Like it's your ripple effect throughout the world is more than you even realize.
Yeah, we're hoping to see it increase exponentially.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Centered Presents The Future of Health. If you're interested in learning more, please visit us at drmollybrown.com or email us at media@drmollybrown.com.